Gate 22 of human design, or quantum human design, is adventure and challenge. And I'll talk a little bit about why there's two words there for her, um, Karen Curry Parker. And then for the gene keys, it is the gift of totality. So let's dive in. So that gene key threesome is the shadow of purposelessness, the gift of totality, and the city of immortality. This is the full moon in Scorpio. So, as you know, full moons, well, like I said, everybody has their own opinion on this. Some believe full moon is fully for the fruition, but to me, it's always kind of the two and the four, and like kind of what's going to and what is after. So we are really in that period after the full moon for the next 2 weeks of this gradual waning of the light of the moon, right? And so for me, this is when we are in releasing old patterns, appreciating what we have received, and releasing old patterns. Um, and also to notice, like, because a lot of times you don't notice what we have received over that moving into the full moon. And so that's really what our job is, and that, in my opinion, in that waxing of the moon. And the wanting is about releasing what is no longer needed, especially for the next thing we are bringing to fruition that will culminate with that next full moon. So it's a continual movement and continual cycle. So there's really no wrong way. It's just a matter of like how it feels for you and what you've noticed in your experiences as the moons wax and wane. Um, well, no, Wayne. Which one are you? Which one do you prefer? All right, let me stop. So we'll start with Richard Rudd's chapter for Gene 28, which is named The Egregor of Fear. So I have to look that up. I'm like, what's an egregor? I don't even know. But it's essentially the culmination of energy, ideas, and that become an entity. An egregor of fear in some cultures have been called demons. And then, so they become things made up of that own energy. So all energy can be in some way sentient. Thought, emotion, energy, it pretty much is. I think that this, like if you've ever heard of Eckhart Tolle call out the pain body. So the pain body is another version of this. It's really the same thing. And Richard Rowe talks about how the shamans are here to recognize when there's that pattern of that energy field, pain body, of emotion and all that, and then to recognize where it's coming from and then to release it. So they do ceremonies and things so that people release what is aggregating in that fear fear factor, right? So, what are your patterns? That's what's going to be next. We'll get into. I do have a few things for you to remember. The three things that we're going to let go of, and then we'll also have our three content pieces coming up in a bit. So, what else do you need to know? These are forces that are in the world that directly challenge your ability to find your purpose or even follow it. So if you can't find it, you can't follow it, right? That's part of it. But even if you can find it, are you following it? Is the question behind the statement, right? Are you following the purpose that you know you're here to walk? And so that is the reality, is that there are, like, what prevents us from that? We call out people and places and families and all those things, and often it's our own fears that are the true, what do they call them? There's the problem. There was actually in the way that there was actually holding us back. uh so yeah, so if you know your purpose and you're not following it, then are we looking into why, right? And are we looking into why? Are we getting support into learning how to move past our fears or release them? There's so many different things. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So the true question here in that shadow is, what is the point of one's life? Like, so the basic fear of this is death itself. So I think the last one was more a fear of non-existence. Like, so, well, actually, this becomes non-existence. No, the other one I think was a little bit different. It was is something about death, but it wasn't necessarily the culminating factor of death. And the difference essentially is that you're afraid that any action could end you, that that failure, the ultimate failure is death, right? Which means that if I'm going to be here, then why am I here? So back in the days and generations and generations in the past, that looked a lot more like surviving the next animal attack, surviving the next drought, surviving the next winter, right? Like those were very obvious things that you can pin that fear on. And so you don't have to necessarily face the internal fears. So now that we've gotten all our materials and we've brought all our food to us and we have so much space to worry about things that aren't immediately life threatening. We've heard about this before, right? This is what causes that stress that we need to release in order to stay healthy. This is what causes our fears that keep us from doing the actions that would be helpful, sustaining, growing for us in our lives. And so we make that primal fear for survival, and well, you don't make it, but it becomes this fear of doing anything. So a lot of us, those stressor responses are fight, flight, fawn. If you haven't checked it out yet, I do have a podcast and we spoke about this at least in two books. Burnout is the biggest one that this will help you if you're having any physical symptoms of this kind of feeling of stress. A lot of us kind of we take that feeling of stress and overwhelm, and then we say that we that means that we can't do it, and then we blame parties around us for not doing it. And something I've done too. So don't feel like you're the only one. It's human. It's nothing wrong with you. And then when you've done that work and said, okay, that is that problem, then you do the work to clear it. And so burnout's really about like knowing what the body needs to clear something out, the difference between that and what the brain needs. And they're two different things, and they both must be handled to fully release those things. So maybe you've already done the brain work, maybe you've done the shadow work and you've written all the journals down and but you haven't done the body work yet. So a quick one that I like is just shaking. There's other ones, um, like holding your muscles and releasing. There's so many. There's some actual somatic therapists. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and tag Georgina in this because Georgina Eagleston is the queen of somatic release. And even if it's not grief, you still need release. But especially if it's grief, right? Because there's no external thing to blame it on. The person is usually gone, or the opportunity is gone. There's nothing you can do about it, or so you wouldn't be grieving it, right? So learning how to release those things and pay attention when it's time or you're having symptoms of not releasing it, procrastination, overwhelm, right? All righty. So that's that work, facing that dark side, meeting those shadows, um, asking yourself or like having that being with the fear of death. That's very natural, and we can't just well, we can. If you ignore it, though, it shows up as all these other symptoms. So being making friends with it, not letting it make decisions for you if you know those decisions aren't fully logical, for acting as if um, that we have to hide and we're in fawn and we're not doing anything, we're not moving forward, and there's the reasons in real life why we need to move forward. Those things are what we want to do the work on. So most of that for the feeling itself is just being with the feeling, recognizing it, saying, oh, I'm doing these things because of this thing. So at least you're bringing that shadow side of unconscious reaction to conscious, oh, I do that when I'm afraid. And I don't even know what I'm afraid of because it's not the tiger is not there to be obviously, oh, I'm afraid of the tiger, right? So we have to go actually figure that out. What makes me feel like I'm about to die, right? So if we can't ask ourselves that question without going down the fear cycle of just the fact that we have to die as humans, then there's more work to do, right? All right, fixed mental philosophy over facing the fear of death. So this looks like religion and science and all the philosophies. If you try to over explain it, that's still all up here in the head, y'all. That's all up here in the head. Like your beliefs are your beliefs. Yeah, yeah. But if we're acting out of something that, again, is not true, that we're making true because we need it to hold the space for our fear, then it looks like not facing reality or not um, taking the action that's truly needed, right? Uh, so there's that, and there is the power that comes with it. So Richard White is all about that power. Okay. He's about the gift and the genius in this energy. It's not in, it's not in spite of it. It's not the opposite of the shadow. It is because of it. It is because of the energy that the shadow appears. And it's also because of the energy that the gift, the genius, is available, right? So, what does that look like when that gift is available? It looks like deep attunement to the acoustic field in frequency and sound. So, those are words I took directly from the chapter. And so sound comes up a lot in the gene keys. And if you haven't noticed, now that you go, whenever you go back, I want you to notice how often sound is mentioned, how often vibration is mentioned, how often voice is mentioned, and the different types, different kinds too, right? Our voice of authorship, our style, right? Different kinds of voice. It is literally one of the titles of the purpose sphere is voice. So yeah, attunement. That's what we're here for in this channel. We're here for the understanding of how we attune to energy. In the shadow, it looks like avoiding, separating, distorting that energy. And in the gift, it looks like attunement. It looks like alignment. It looks like aligned action, right? And it is seated in the purpose because you're attuned to why you're here, which is the energy that you came in with. And that is what I teach through the astrology portions, right? So, what we're doing right now, we're learning how we are resonating and what we resonate with and why we resonate with some things and why we don't resonate with others. And so the more we recognize that, the more we know what is ours, we know where our path is the right path. And I know my next step is going that way. It makes things clear, it makes us more confident, and it makes us more impactful because we're coming with that energy when we show up in conscious alignment, in attunement, right? So that is what's so powerful about having that sense of your attunement and trust in life. And so that's what it takes, is that trust in life. It's also from the chapter to live with the unexpected and to stay open to continual change whilst remaining committed. So this is something I literally just had a class on putting your event or work out there as a business. And it was a lot of that question, like, have we committed? I also had a class earlier today that was talking about decisions. And decisions, as a lot of people know, is when you take the word apart into its parts, decisive is the same root word of incision, of cutting something away, or decision, cutting something off, right? So all cutting off all other possibility is the way a lot of people describe it. I've heard that in a lot of different places, so I can't name which one said it first. but but yeah, it's important making the decision. So that doesn't mean that you'll never have a doubt again, but once you've made a decision, you know that you usually the next thing is, well, I'll figure out the rest, right? Or I'll see what allows for the rest, which is where we're going to be more in possibility around this month because we have a lot of the previous energy, right, from the last new moon that was telling us that we had to make a choice regardless if we were getting any outward signs of what's the right choice. And that's the same thing here. You're going to have to make this decision in that light, in the light of what you're creating doesn't have an external um, direction. And so, well, in attunement, it doesn't. And then this one is saying, okay, now we're acting and we're not going to let the fact that it's hard, the fact that we could die, or feels like we could die at least, get in the way of our action. Now, that's the that's the energy of that really right now. And so it can look like it. You know, what's hard is that I just a part of this is like, why this way? We're going to get to with Karen Kern Parker's piece. But um, I just had a personal experience in which a friend is facing an actual potential life threatening challenge. What I find is that this work often is bringing out and highlighting things that are just already true. Okay, so when you feel like like you could die on stage, when you feel that panic of saying how you really feel in a group of other adults, right, or other people, that fear of dying is real. Why? Because you feel it. It's, you know, and so you don't need to dismiss it. You don't need to ignore it. You don't need to make excuses for it. You don't need to pretend like it's not there. It's real, right? You get to honor that emotion and you get to allow it to shift you into the other possibility, which is that possibility of adventure, which is where Karen Curry Parker brings us. It's like, yeah, you see that challenge? It looks like a lion's mouth. I'm from Tiger to Lion, right? It looks like a lion's mouth. And we face that challenge as an adventure, right? When once you recognize that it is not, okay, well, the lion's not eating me, it just looks like it could. It feels like it's a possibility, right? And then like, okay, what do I do with that? Well, you decide, oh well, this is a lion that can't actually kill me. Maybe I choose the adventure of seeing what it would be like to cage a lion, right? Um, let's see what I have in me. Let's see what I've got against this lion, this perceived lion. So the challenge is to not let that lion defeat your dreams. The challenge is not to let that in your head imaginary lion defeat your dreams. So, well, what do you want to do with this energy? What can you co-create with this energy? Well, you can tell other people how that lion won't eat you. You could actually tell people how to eat the lion or eat the elephant, so to speak. What are the piece by piece, like which bite is next, right? In your experience. Okay, so that's coming up. We're almost at the content pieces. We're almost there, y'all. Um, the unbalanced expression is saying, "Oh, it's too hard. It's gonna hurt too much. It's so hard that I'm almost guaranteed to fail, so it's not worth it." That's unbalanced. So if we notice the lion, we face the lion, and we're like, "Oh no, I don't have the chutzpah to face that lion, and so I'm just gonna give up." Oh, right? And so yeah, so that's what turns that energy back to that shadow. And it can look like being hollow, doing things without really that you don't care about because you can do them. or having conversations you don't care about because they're easier. Right? The reaction can look like taking ridiculous risks that aren't necessary, actually putting your life on the line, speeding down the road because you're, running away from your fears, overspending because you can't make enough, right? Like those things that just like eat you from behind, right? May not be aligned, but they'll eventually get you. So yeah, so that's what we want to do is we want to face the line and we want to say, okay, I don't know how yet, but I'm going to move forward anyways. Whether that's that in the first step is commitment in that decision that I'm going to live my purpose or I'm going to find my purpose, whatever it is for you at this time. Okay, like it just takes a commitment. Once you've made that commitment, then the energy can serve you. It'll bring up the little pebbles that will lead you to the path of getting to your path, your personal path of your purpose, of what you're here to do and be. Now, it's already there. That's the other thing you got to remember there. It's like, yeah, I'm going to find myself. No, no, you're here. So ask yourself some questions and then don't and listen until you get an answer. Like, don't let the silence fool you. Okay, it's there, but you're gonna have to sit for a little bit if you're not in that practice yet. Okay, let's move on. We're gonna move on. Three things to let go of. Let go of needing external proof. Okay, so you don't need your best friend to tell you it's a good idea. You don't need enough money in the account. You don't need to wait until the other thing's finished before you know if it's okay that you can start. You don't need it. Because if it's your purpose, then it doesn't matter. Like you're either here for a reason or you're not. So once you understand our purpose, it's really about like how we're choosing to engage with that purpose and ignoring it will only get you so far. Will only get you so far. It's where a lot of sickness comes from, in my opinion. Moving on. Let go of the fear that it's too hard, therefore failure is likely, and it can't be worth it. So that goes back to the first one actually for me because it's like, yeah, no, it's it doesn't matter if you fail. Like that's all you're here to do. So running from it isn't going to serve us at all. And it shows up physically, right? So if it hasn't shown up physically yet, like don't wait. I'm saying this like over and over again because again, this is happening to a friend of mine. It is what happened to me. In both cases, well, I'm not saying that, but life threatening. Okay. So it comes one end or the other. That's what the energy is about. Um, yeah, I don't know a softer way to say that. We're in crucial times, folks. we're, we're in crucial times. It's just what's true for now. Okay. So small steps count, but commitments are the the culminating force. Okay. Release anything that doesn't align with where you're going. So if you know who you are to be and you're still becoming, which is true for most of us, if not all, right? Then let's see where we are, take stock, decide if we need to do better and what we're going to try or work on or shift so that we can be more in attunement and alignment with that purpose and that totality that's available in this energy. Okay. So release anything that doesn't align with where you're going. So this includes old habits that you know are old and you're done with, you're tired of yourself doing it. Those old habits. and ideas of self. So things that you used to think were true about who you were, or and knowing that's not who you are, and no longer okay with thinking that's who you'll continue to be. So the things you've been tolerating about yourself, get it off, get it off. Yeah. And again, if you ever question yourself, ever doubt yourself, that's natural, that's human. And then coming back to making the decision, seeing what's next. What's the next action? Okay. Three content ideas. Three content ideas. What have you decided to do in spite of outside evidence? So this is about where have you been brave before? Where have you looked at that lion and you were like, oh, that lion's gonna eat me. I don't care, I'm doing it anyways. For me, the one that always comes back to me is going to grad school. I had I had just over $200. Yeah, from what I remember, just over $200 to my name in my bank account. And I didn't know how I was going to afford to go to my grad school that I got accepted to, that I'd already, started a loan for. So I tried to sell some furniture and stuff, but I wasn't very good at it. So that didn't happen. So I just had Goodwill come and pick everything up, and I packed the car with whatever I couldn't throw away and went. And I ended up there. I have a graduate degree. I have a graduate degree in Masters of Music in Opera Performance, and uh, and it's the cornerstone of what brought me to this work. Is what helped me develop my voice method, which is called the Omans method, and it's the cornerstone of my work. So what is that story for you? What is that story for you, and why is it so important that you face that lion? And can you tell other people about it? Okay, that's another one that we're coming up with. So content number two is, what are you doing even though it's challenging right now, because it's yours to do. It is your purpose. It is what you're here for. It's what you're passionate about in this moment. So you're going to do it, regardless of how much it can look like failure, even though the world's ending. everything's everything's a mess. Like, what are you not going to stop doing, regardless of the external appearances? Right. So for me, that's sharing my voice work. So what have I decided, even though times are rough and times are hard and things are shifting, including online and online marketing, I have committed to continuing to share my voice work. And as a result, I've gotten two great opportunities. I'm going to be doing a vocal alchemy workshop in real life at the Crystal Shop on Main Street downtown. And then I just was accepted as a speaker to the Goddess Festival, and so I'll be doing that this year as well. So, and also, it was so funny because I approached the first person as like, I do work around astrology, people that like astrology, it'll be fun. So I'm like trying to like go in with my foo-foo, whatever. And she's like, well, what else do you do? And so I told her about my voice work, and I saw her just light up. And I was like, wow, I've never had that immediate response without me doing a 20-minute explanation before. And what I know is that, oh, it's time. This is, I know that this year, I mean, it's been increasingly time over these last 7 years. And then this year has been so obviously time. It's time for people to know what voice work is, right? And so doors are just opening. Same thing for the Goddess Festival. I was like, well, I can teach on confidence, I can teach on making an impact, the stuff that people have historically preferred to hear. And she's like, no, she didn't say, well, I mean, I have a one sheet that I told her that on in our conversation. She asked me about my work, and she was like, well, what do we call it? So we had already started that conversation. And she was like, well, what do we call the workshop? And I was like, well, I've been calling it vocal alchemy. She's like, that's it. I won't even hear anything else. And it used to be the response to that, those words used to be, oh, well, who will know what that means, right? So don't be afraid of saying what you are doing the way you are doing it. As a long story short, uh, things are shifting and changing, and in ways that has not been true before. We are the main subject. And what I found is that we have not been historically over the period of our lives, if you're at all close to my age. Um, and so it may look like shifting your beliefs around what people can hear, what they'll listen to, and speaking straight to the truth of what you're doing. Okay. What have you overcome, or can you teach others to overcome? So when you looked at that lion's mouth, did you learn anything? Did you learn anything about yourself? Right? Did you learn anything about your ability to face a challenge? And did you learn that there is a easier way to face a challenge? Could you done it a little easier if you had known more things? Right? That's what you can also share, is that understanding, that story with others. For me, that's that I had liver cancer. And so this is one of my, why I'm so strongly saying that you want to face your purpose. I promise you, even if it's just one itsy bitsy a step at a time, because your body wants is here for that. And it can feel like your body betraying you when we aren't fulfilling it. Okay, it's the kind of way I can say it, right? Out of my personal experience to yours, I hope that it helps you get there faster. And yes, share your light, persevere. Those are complementing energies from our programming partner and channel of completion. Those are the gifts for coming by. I appreciate you being here. And if I don't see you in chat on YouTube, then I'd love to see you at one of my events. Check my links in the comments.